You open your eyes in the morning, you reach for your device, and before 5 minutes have passed, you've already encountered 3 videos calling out to you. Alert! Permanent residents facing uncertainty. Recent policy may affect your legal status. See this immediately. And suddenly, before you've finished your morning beverage, your pulse is elevated, your palms are moist, and you're questioning whether you still belong in this nation. Let me pause you right here. My name is Josh Martin, and welcome back to America Door, the platform where we eliminate the confusion, avoid the alarmist tactics, and deliver you only the facts. Today's presentation is designed for every single permanent resident who has been experiencing anxiety because of what they're encountering on digital platforms. If that describes you, I need you to remain with me for the coming few minutes, because what I'm preparing to reveal to you could genuinely transform the way you understand your circumstances. And even more importantly, it could restore your sense of calm. Here's what's occurring right now. Every single day, a new video appears. A new title emerges. A new urgent announcement informs you that everything is preparing to shift for foreign nationals in America. Some of these videos accumulate hundreds of thousands of views within hours. They're crafted to be sensational. They're crafted to make you engage, to make you distribute, to make you feel like the situation is becoming desperate for you. And I comprehend why permanent residents are concerned. I genuinely do. The political atmosphere around immigration right now is heightened. There are presidential directives being enacted. There are new suggestions being presented in Congress. And yes, implementation across the country has increased significantly. None of that is fabricated. None of that is something I'm going to disregard. But here is the essential difference between what you're encountering on digital platforms and what is actually occurring in actual circumstances right now as it relates specifically to you as a permanent resident. Most of what you're encountering is either a suggestion that was never enacted, a proposal that ended in committee the same week it was presented, a presidential directive that's been stopped by the courts, or a news account that's been exaggerated beyond recognition to get engagement. And the creators producing those videos, many of them are not immigration lawyers. Many of them are not even remotely qualified to inform you what the regulations say. They're pursuing interaction. They're pursuing followers, and unfortunately, they're doing it at the expense of your psychological well-being and your sense of stability. So today I want to do something different. I want to guide you through exactly how immigration regulations actually function, what safeguards you actually possess as a permanent resident, and how to distinguish the difference between something that matters and something that doesn't. By the conclusion of this video, my objective is simple. I want you to feel knowledgeable, confident, and peaceful. Let's begin. Part 1. Understanding how immigration regulations actually transform and why it's not as straightforward as a headline. One of the biggest misunderstandings that creates all of this anxiety is the notion that immigration regulations can transform overnight. That one evening you rest with full privileges as a permanent resident, and by the time you awaken, everything is different. That is not how the United States legislative system functions. Not even close. For a new immigration regulation to actually become effective in this country, it has to progress through a very specific, very intentional, and often very gradual process. First, a proposal has to be drafted and formally presented in either the House of Representatives or the Senate. That presentation is where you get your initial headline. Legislator presents proposal that would revoke permanent residence from foreign nationals accused of offenses. Sounds frightening, right? But here's what the headline doesn't inform you. The fact that a proposal has been presented means almost nothing at this stage. The United States Congress presents thousands of proposals every single session, and the overwhelming majority of them never progress anywhere. After a proposal is presented, it gets referred to a committee. That committee has to examine it, modify it, and vote on whether it even deserves a full chamber vote. Most proposals never make it past committee. They just remain there, they accumulate dust, they expire quietly, and nobody makes a video about that part. But let's say the proposal does make it out of committee. It then has to proceed to a full vote in the House of Representatives. If it passes the House, it proceeds to the Senate where the entire process essentially begins over again. Committee examination, discussion, modifications, and a chamber vote. Both the House version and the Senate version of the proposal have to be reconciled into one unified piece of legislation. And then finally, that reconciled proposal proceeds to the president's desk to be signed into regulation. That entire process from presentation to presidential signature routinely takes months. Often it takes years. Sometimes for genuinely controversial legislation, it takes decades. And in many cases, most cases actually, the proposal never becomes regulation at all. Let me give you a concrete example so you can see exactly how this unfolds in the real world. Think about birthright citizenship. This has been one of the most discussed immigration topics over the past couple of years. There have been suggestions, presidential directives, court challenges, headlines upon headlines upon headlines. And yet, as of right now, birthright citizenship, the principle that anyone born on American soil is an American citizen, remains the regulation of the land. It has not transformed. Despite years of political discussion, despite presidential action, despite the concern that was generated, the regulation has not transformed because the courts have stepped in repeatedly to delay or prevent those transformations. Now, let's bring it closer to home for permanent residents specifically. A few months ago, you may have seen an explosion of videos about a suggested proposal that would allow the government to revoke a permanent residence from someone who had been merely accused of an offense. Not convicted, not found guilty in a court of law, just accused. The videos were everywhere. Permanent residents beware. You could lose everything over an accusation. Anxiety ensued. Here's what actually occurred. A legislator presented that proposal. That's it. It was presented, and then it proceeded absolutely nowhere. It didn't pass committee. It didn't get a chamber vote. It didn't pass the House or the Senate. It is not regulation. It never came close to becoming regulation. But the videos that warned you about it, those are still circulating. People are still distributing them. And new viewers are still watching them and thinking this occurred when it absolutely did not. This is the pattern you need to recognize. Presentation of a proposal equals headlines, anxiety, and viral videos. The proposal quietly expiring somewhere in the legislative process equals silence. The algorithm rewards the concern. It never rewards the correction. Part 2. Presidential directives. Influential but not permanent. Now, I want to be fair here because there is one mechanism through which immigration approach can transform more quickly than the full legislative process. Presidential directives. The President of the United States has the authority to issue presidential directives, which are essentially instructions that direct federal agencies on how to implement or interpret existing regulations. In the context of immigration, presidential directives can have real and immediate consequences. They can affect which populations are prioritized for implementation, what criteria immigration officers use when making decisions, how certain visa categories are handled, and more. And yes, over the past several years, under administrations of both parties, we have seen presidential directives that impacted foreign nationals, including permanent residents. So, this is not nothing. I want to be clear about that. But here's what's equally important to understand. Presidential directives are not permanent transformations to immigration regulation. They are not the same as legislation passed by Congress. And historically, the more sweeping and aggressive a presidential directive is, especially when it affects large numbers of people, the more likely it is to be challenged in federal court. We've seen this unfold time and time again. A presidential directive gets signed. Civil liberties organizations and immigration advocacy groups immediately proceed to court. A federal judge issues a temporary restraining order blocking the approach while the legal challenge proceeds, and the presidential directive never fully becomes effective or it gets significantly narrowed before it does. This is not a partisan observation. It occurred under Democratic administrations. It occurred under Republican administrations. The courts are a check on presidential power, and they exercise that check regularly when it comes to immigration. So when you see a video informing you that a new presidential directive is going to eliminate your privileges as a permanent resident, take a breath. Ask yourself, has this been implemented yet? Is it being challenged in court? What are actual immigration lawyers saying about it? Often the answer is that the approach is tied up in litigation, that implementation is inconsistent, or that the practical impact on lawfully present permanent residents is far more limited than the headline suggests. Part 3. Your privileges as a permanent resident. These are real and they are strong. Let's talk about something that almost never makes it into those viral concern videos. Your actual privileges as a permanent resident. Because here's the thing, those privileges are significant. They've been built up and reinforced over decades of immigration regulation constitutional regulation, and court precedent. They don't disappear because of a single proposal presentation or a social media post. First, and most importantly, you cannot be removed without due process. This is a constitutional safeguard. It is not something that can be eliminated by presidential directive or even by a simple piece of legislation. If the government wants to remove a permanent resident from the United States, they have to proceed through the immigration court system. That means you have the privilege to appear before an immigration judge. You have the privilege to present evidence on your behalf. You have the privilege to challenge the government's case against you. You have the privilege to appeal a decision that goes against you. This process is not quick. It is not simple. And it absolutely cannot be bypassed by an immigration officer at the airport or on the street simply deciding they want to take your permanent residence away from you. That brings me to a critically important point that I want you to remember and distribute with every permanent resident you know. If you are ever in a situation where an immigration officer is pressuring you to sign documents, to surrender your permanent residence, or to voluntarily agree to removal, do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything without speaking to an immigration lawyer first. Your permanent residence cannot be taken from you unless you sign it away or unless an immigration judge orders its revocation after a proper hearing. Those are the rules. An officer at a checkpoint, a border agent at the airport, a federal agent showing up at your door. None of them have the unilateral authority to remove you of your permanent residence on the spot. Now, does this mean you should be careless? Absolutely not. There are things that can put your permanent resident status at risk, and I want to be honest with you about those as well. Extended absences from the United States, particularly leaving the country for more than 6 months, and certainly for more than a year, can raise questions about whether you have abandoned your permanent residence. Criminal convictions, particularly for certain categories of offenses, can create serious immigration consequences. And there are other specific circumstances that a qualified immigration lawyer can guide you through. But the key word there is can create consequences. Not will automatically result in losing your permanent residence overnight with no warning and no recourse. The regulation still requires process. The regulation still requires hearings. The regulation still requires a judge. Part 4. How to actually evaluate immigration information going forward. I want to give you a practical framework, something you can use every single time you see one of those concerning videos or alarming headlines. A simple set of questions that will help you quickly separate the genuine concerns from the manufactured anxiety. Question 1. Is this a suggestion or a regulation? If someone is reporting on a proposal that was presented or an idea that a politician mentioned in a speech, that is not regulation. That is a suggestion. Suggestions fail all the time. Until something passes both chambers of Congress and is signed by the president, it is not regulation and it does not affect you. Question 2. If it is a regulation or a presidential directive, has it been implemented yet? Even when something does become regulation or approach, implementation takes time. Agencies need to write guidelines. Instructions need to be issued, and very often litigation delays implementation for months or even years. Question 3. Is it being challenged in court? As I mentioned earlier, major immigration approaches are routinely challenged in federal court, and courts frequently issue injunctions that prevent those approaches from being implemented while the challenge proceeds. Check whether a legal challenge has been filed. Often, you'll find that the approach you're worried about is currently blocked. Question 4. Who is reporting on this, and are they qualified? Is the person making this video an immigration lawyer? Do they have expertise in this specific area of regulation, or are they a content creator pursuing viral moments? This matters enormously. Immigration regulation is incredibly complex, and nuance is everything. A well-intentioned non-expert can cause just as much anxiety as someone acting in bad faith. Question 5. What are actual immigration lawyers saying when there is a genuine development that permanent residents need to pay attention to? Qualified immigration lawyers will be talking about it. If you can't find reputable lawyers weighing in on the specific concern, that itself is a signal that it may not be as serious as it's being made out to be. Part 5. What you should actually be focused on. Rather than spending your energy on anxiety, here's where your energy is genuinely well spent as a permanent resident in the current environment. Know your travel rules. This is a simple one, but it catches people off guard. As a permanent resident, be mindful of how long you stay outside the United States. Extended absences can create complications. If you need to travel for an extended period, talk to an immigration lawyer beforehand. Stay out of legal trouble. This sounds obvious, but it's worth saying clearly. Criminal convictions, even for matters that might seem minor, can have serious immigration consequences under current regulation. Be aware of this. Keep your documents in order. Make sure your permanent residence is current, that you have all the documentation of your lawful status, and that you know where everything is. Consider naturalization if you're eligible. If you've held your permanent residence for the required period and you meet the eligibility requirements for U.S. citizenship, seriously consider starting that process. Citizenship is the strongest possible safeguard against removal concerns, and it eliminates the category of risk that's driving most of the anxiety you're seeing. And perhaps most importantly, build a relationship with a qualified immigration lawyer. Not so that you can contact them in a panic every time a new video goes viral, but so that when something genuinely significant occurs, you have a trusted professional you can turn to for a measured, accurate assessment. If there's one thing I want you to walk away from this video knowing, it's this. You are not powerless and you are not unprotected. The headlines are designed to make you feel otherwise because concern drives interaction. But the regulation, for all its complexity and imperfection, still provides meaningful safeguards for permanent residents. Those safeguards don't evaporate because of a social media post or a viral video. Stay informed, stay calm, and stay smart about where you get your information. That's the real protection against the confusion. If this video helped you, please do me a favor and press that like button. It genuinely helps this platform reach more people who need to hear this message. Subscribe to America Door so you never miss a new video, and turn on notifications because we cover real immigration developments as they occur without the sensationalism. Leave a comment below and tell me what's the most alarming immigration headline or video you've seen recently. I read every comment, and your question might end up being the subject of our next video. And if you personally have immigration questions, if you're going through a permanent residence process, renewing your status, dealing with a complicated situation, or simply want to understand your privileges better, reach out. The link in the description connects you directly with qualified help. Until next time, this is America Door. Take a breath. You've got this. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next.